How about that?
Yeah.
Okay.
No
Are
problem.
you, yeah, are you
I'm ready.
ready?
Yes.
So I'll be very brief. And so I think we will start. Okay, everyone, welcome back to our Critical Island Study Zoom talk series. And this is the last one and also the one before the conference in Yogyakarta. So today I'm very honored and pleased to introduce to you our moderator for this talk this afternoon. He actually does not need introduction. He's a dear friend of all of us, but I guess just in terms of the formality, I'll just go ahead with it. Our moderator for this afternoon is Professor Oscar Campomanes, who received his PhD in American Studies from Brown University and been teaching at Ateneo de Manila for a long period of time. His research, creative, and pedagogical interests span manifold and intersecting areas. Throughout a distinguished career that has traversed numerous academic and cultural institutions in North America and the Philippines, Professor Campomanes has contributed significantly to Trans-Pacific scholarship, including Philippine studies, Filipino-American studies, diasporic studies, American Empire studies, culture studies, and most recently, critical island studies. He's a writer of numerous articles and books and has been widely anthologized. He's also known for his role as an editor, a translator, an art critic, and also a great teacher and a mentor to many of us. Without further ado, let me give you Professor Campomanes. Okay, here we go.
Thank you, Yiping, for that generous introduction. It gives me the greatest pleasure to introduce our last speaker for the virtual Zoom Forums series of the Southeast Asia Conference Consortium in Critical Island Studies, which was organized, conceptualized even by Professor Yiping Liang herself of National Taiwan Normal University. Our speaker here being Dr. Alex Tak Wang Lee of Kyung University. And I'll be moderating the discussion to follow his presentation today titled Ontology of an Archipelagic Subject. Professor Lee or Alex, whom I have the good fortune to count as a dear friend and comrade, is professor in the Department of British and American Cultural Studies and director of the Global Center for Technology in the Humanities at Kyung University in Korea. He was recently visiting professor at the Research Institute for the Humanities and Social Sciences, National Taiwan University, 2021 to 2022, and in the Center for Culture, Media, and Governance at Jamia Millia Islamia in India, 2019 to 2020. A prolific and highly regarded scholar of philosophical and cultural studies as well as of critical theory, Alex has authored 19 books, I counted them, Alex, in Korean, and was recently co-editor with Geoff Broadley and Manoj NY of the Anthology de Liz Guattari and the Schizoanalysis of Postmedia, Bloomsbury, 2023, and with Slavoj Žižek, The Idea of Communism 3, Verso 2016. He has also translated, I didn't know this until I checked out his most updated CV, works by Vaclav Havel and Simon Bowman, Terry Eagleton, among many others, from English into Korean. We are all looking forward to his presentation from a work in progress on the relationship of the archipelagic to political subjectivity. It's actually a fascinating talk, believe me, about technology and its ontology, which promises to extend ongoing discussions on the Icelandic, archipelagic, and oceanic in unexpected and philosophical directions and into the realm of political philosophy. So be prepared to be surprised. Let us all welcome and give a round of applause to Alex.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it was my big pleasure to be warmly introduced by Oscar, who I admired much. And then also, I'm really happy to be here. And thank you for having me and the many audiences. And then I would like to, propose kind of a very challenging, theory of the archipelagic ontology. And then, so I would like to, develop um, my actually initiative idea through some discussion. That's what I really hope so. So what I gonna talk today is a part of my ongoing project is weak technologies. And then actually I try to bring in my own idea based on the what I researched on the history of Ireland or some history of Caribbean studies, and then also the developed from our workshop of the ATN, Asian Theorist Networks. So okay, just so can I should do one or some change that? Yeah, okay. So my question in this talk is this one: why an archipelagic ontology? Because actually we already very familiar with this discussion in Caribbean studies, right? So archipelagic epistemology. So could you actually change it to another one? So for instance, the Glissant, Edward Glissant, I think you would be very used to what he argued, right? And then he met in a Guattari, and then Guattari also took his idea, and then he developed actually his later work, all right, schizoanalysis of global system, something like that. So I think actually the Guattari didn't finish his work, but from there I would like to start my project, and then now I had some sort of a temporary, the development of this theoretical insight into the archipelagic epistemology. So my idea is that, okay, just the Glissant try to insist epistemological difference of the Caribbean life or some based on that kind of geographical differences, so-called islands or some archipelago, the from the that the mainstream of the European culture. I think actually the Glissant idea is based on that transatlantic thought. That means actually they kind of actually you would know that we already know a lot of actually the research on this topic, transatlantic exchange and transatlantic thought, transatlantic literature, and then Glissant actually in my opinion um, proposed in epistemology is a different epistemology from the European some civilization because that transatlantic culture already the emerged from the hybridity, not really actually simple colonization or simple implantation of the kind of European civilization onto the the American actually the continent, something like that. So he tried to actually develop that idea, but the problem is that actually their idea is the actual limited to epistemology. Could you actually change it? So this actually the workout, the workout is the Nobel laureate poet, and then Glissant also actually friend of a workout, and then also that they exchanged a lot. I could change it, and then the workout argue that very interesting see the the idea of this archipelagic thinking, and they actually made this new concept in the Glissant, and then Derek Walcott. Archipelagic thinking is in the Glissant term, Hongse, archipelagic, that is actually archipelagic thinking, archipelagic, the Hongse Archipelagic. There is actually the glissant main idea of the archipelagic epistemology. So actually based on this the new the knowledge system, or some they try to develop the alternative knowledge system to the European Eurocentric knowledge system, so-called philosophy, and then some sort of they try to justify the aesthetic practice of a Caribbean the poet and then a Caribbean artist, or some transatlantic the culture against the sort of actual mainstream of the European the aesthetic scene. So or some kind of a philosophical the history. So could you change it? So they actually started like this, is African and the Asian diaspora. Actually their idea is I already actually mentioned, fully developed in American the interdisciplinary study, or some transnational study, or some many the the something actually or some postmodern study, and then global study. Actually you could actually come across this idea, and then Orko to argue like this: a break a vase, and the love that resembles the fragment is stronger than the love which took its symmetry for granted when it was whole. The glue that fits the pieces is a sealing of its original shape. It is such a love that resembles our African Asiatic fragments, the cracked heirlooms whose restoration shows its white scars. End quote. So Walcott actually quite poetically described, the foundation, or some kind of the cornerstone of that archipelagic epistemology. But actually there is some problem here. That is what I argue, or some clarify the limit of the epistemology. What I mean actually, the Walcott already presupposed like this, the archipelagic world was a vase, or some the whole world, according to Glissant. The people, the modern, the world, that means a modern technology, or some in Heideggerian sense. It actually, there was already some whole world, and that whole world was fragmented through that, modernization, whatever called, or globalization. In Marxist the term might be, the global capitalism. It came in, or also imperialism. It came in actually that, some sort of a primitive world, and then it actually, the split, or the break, it actually break, that whole world into the pieces. And then actually they would argue we need to reintegrate, or reunite, or the construct that fragment, Okay, we could say that, but this actual idea as such, in my opinion, saturated by some ideological, the ideological and the rhetoric, or ideological discourse. I would take it, for instance, Heidegger, nostalgia toward some, of course, actually the, the Glissant and the Walcott didn't, actually didn't, clearly the appealed, some the lost world of the uprooted, life, or some kind of homeland, where they didn't actually clearly the appeal, the kind of nostalgic, the origin of the current world, not like the Heidegger, but you could see that Glissant and the Walcott, the regarded that whole world as a female figure. It's quite a mythical form, and then a womb, and then some the mothers, the some the sweetness, something like that. It's actually they rely on the their idea, their imagination rely on that kind of very in my opinion, very modern dichotomy. Nature is female, and then civilization is male. you know, and then actually the whole world is warm of the actually the fragmented world, something like that. So we must get back to the kind of the original warm, you know, and then must be reborn, you know, through that the warm, something like that. So actually that rhetoric is quite you know, the in my opinion modernist actually the aesthetic. It's not really actually, you know, something new one, in my opinion. So okay, just let's go to another one, another slide. So and then if you are interested in this discussion, is this book is recently published, I think, which collected almost all, you know, the essay about this scope, you know, the archipelago as a lens. I think this actually the keyword, you know, the contemporary archipelagic thinking, the collection of this the, you know, collection of essay which was the, you know, integrated in this volume would, you know, tell us very clearly the limit of or problem of this the argument, you know. Actually they said, you know, the authors, you know, included in this volume argue archipelago as a lens, and then the lens may allow us to engage in interdisciplinary conversation about ways in which space and time are resignified. You know, actually, you should actually take this point here. This author, the introduction, I just quote this one in the introduction from the instruction of this, you know, volume. And then the editor, you know, the argue this lens in the archipelago is a lens, and then through this lens we would, you know, the re-signified, you know, space and time. What you know, what does this mean? It means actually, in my opinion, is a epistemological, you know, reconstruction of knowledge. And then okay, just let's go to another one. So but problem is, you know, the knowledge as such as not, you know, some kind of actually the noble attempt to bring in the, you know, that the real of archipelagic, you know, the ontology. What I mean actually the you know, the archipelago as such is archipelago as such must be regarded as object. All right, that means it exists whether or not, whether or actually, you know, the knowledge, you know, recognize you or not, or actually the whether, you know, the Western civilization arrived or Western explorer arrived or not. It was, you know, it was there, and then it existed there, you know. That is what I say, object. So archipelagic thought is not a method in this sense to produce new knowledge, because archipelagic thought is there, you know. And the archipelagic subject is the consequence of ontological production. This is my argument. And the archipelago is the pure difference of the whole world, not, you know, actually the element of this whole world. It's not, you know, the component of this whole world or some primordial, you know, primordial actual condition of the whole world. It's not like that. It's a pure difference. It means is a kind of a condition of this world. That is the archipelago, you know. So you know, the pure difference, that means actually that is a mode of existence. Mode of existence, that is what I say, is an archipelago as not, you know, marginal part of this, you know, world. It's not actually, you know, the some kind of primordial, you know, form of the whole world. It's already, you know, always already exist as pure difference. That is actually what I want to argue. And then the ontological status of archipelago is about nature of the world, how this world becomes what it is. This is actually what I want to argue. So ontological status of archipelago is about nature of the world. So archipelago exists, but you know, we don't have any knowledge to recognize this archipelago. Do you know what I mean? It's we would say Greek archipelago, you know, and then we actually simply call those islands in the, you know, the area of Indonesia as Indonesia. That is really ridiculous because Indonesia as such is, you know, simply common noun, the island of the Indian Ocean. You know, actually, that means what? Without this kind of political terminology, so-called the nation state, in modern, you know, modern world, that means contemporary world, we don't have any, you know, category to call this archipelago. But you know, actually, when you visit, you know, Indonesia, and you would see that those people living on their island, you know, do not call themselves Indonesian. You know, they actually call themselves by what? The island where they lived. This is what I'm saying. So, and then we would say, but they, if they want to actually represent their own country, they must call themselves Indonesian, something like that. They passport, for instance, you know. So that's also my point. Okay, actually, the archipelago ontologically exists as object, but you know, this objective, you know, the existence as such is not, you know, political. It needs something else. It needs something else. What is that? That is what I mean, subject. So even though you are actually living in some island, but you must be interpreted as what? Somebody who belong to nation state. For instance, actually, we live in the, some people live in the Jeju Island, for instance. They don't call themselves, you know, Jejuian, something like that. And then they call themselves is Korean. That is what I mean. But it means, you know, Jeju Island is island, but it was already what? Territorialized by nation state. That's why that the pure difference, you know, the island as a pure difference is a little bit actually disguised by, you know, screened by the kind of national, you know, the national ideology, whatever called this nation state, you know, and nation state's material, the foundation of actually nationalism. If you actually you allow me to actually put a distinction. So, all right. So in this sense, we must start from this ontological state of island. That's actually I would like to argue. Okay. Next. So, but actually, exactly, the I would like to push, you know, the glissando and the Walcott idea, the archipelagic thinking, concept of archipelagic thinking toward, you know, more the you know, the political sense, right? So and then Karl Marx, you know, already put down his analysis of Ireland like this, and then by you know, criticizing the Robinson Crusoe story, and then for him the Robinson Crusoe story is a bourgeois story, is a typical bourgeois success story. So he actually argued like this. So you know, I would say, you know, today's world in which we are living is not a necessary consequence of historical development, but a spontaneous crystallization of overdetermination. This is actually what I have when, you know, try to push the glissant and work out the concept of, you know, the archipelagic thinking to this the political, you know, the conceptualization of archipelago. And then actually I told you that archipelago is kind of ontological, you know, existence. And then the subject, you know, must be produced by this kind of ontological condition, you know. And then my question is, what kind of subject we actually think of, you know, when we argue like this subject, which must be different from, you know, dominant paradigm of global capitalism. That's actually what I want to say. So here the, you know, the, you would know that actually archipelago, I told you that archipelago is already exists as kind of pure pure difference, in this world. So that means actually is kind of the object. So there are always multiple causes behind the effect that seem to be originated from the single cause. That is exactly the way in which the archipelago existed. But not many, the historical textbook recorded, what happened in that, the islands, because actually that politics or culture and then anything, happening or taking place in land is more important than island. And then, so, the lots of, hidden conjuncture here. Nowadays, the historical study started to mention the role of the Indonesia. That means Dutch East India Company, is a relationship to Dutch East Company, and in the the development of the early capitalism, okay, and then this actually primitive actually accumulation already actually Karl Marx mentioned in Capital. But anyway, just so I would like to quote Walter Benjamin to defend my argument. So but Benjamin said, quote, history is the subject of construction whose site is not homogeneous, empty time, but time filled by now time, Zeit, unquote. In a sense, history is not the eternal image of the past, but a unique experience with the past. That means a unique experience is what? Zeit, now time, here and now. So I will argue for the archipelago as a geographical object and the possibility of archipelagic subject under those conditions are the geographical difference between island and object or subject, right? I already actually proposed island, the actual archipelago is object, but if we said, the archipelago is different from that, the land or some the some kind of landscapic, landscopic, territory. That actually, that difference as such turn into object at the same time subject. So archipelago as such is object and at the same time subject. That means actually archipelago things. That's what I'm saying. It's a glissant and the work code. All right, actually they emphasize that in archipelagic thinking, but in my opinion, is actually the archipelago as such things. That's what I'm saying. So why? Because archipelago, that island as such, not isolated, but in the between, that is island. And then this actually, that means archipelago as such, show that trans-individual relation. That is actually what I want to say. The actually, could you change it? And I think the lose, and then this is here, the Dutch jurist Viggo Grotius. I think he tried to appeal the freedom of the sea. All right, you will be actually familiar with this story. He okay, Dutch is Dutch is a little bit and lately the participate in the great exploration. That's why actually they the Viggo the Hugo Grotius insist the actually the freedom of the we must protect the freedom of the sea, and then that means actually land might be ruled by the sovereignty, but the sea must be the free from that kind of sovereignty. That is actually what he argues. So that's why actually the Dutch could the follow that. And that means that actually they could protect their economic interest because of this. Could you actually change it? So freedom of seas, all right. So until the before the Utrecht Treaty, but of course in the the British Empire, actually changed this paradigm, and then the British Empire made, that the world in which we still live, right? And then that is exactly actually, the island show that according to Toulouse, So according to Toulouse, the island, the hides this kind of hidden history, and then some confliction between freedom and the enslavement, or some many actually the struggle between water and earth in geographical sense, and political sense is actually the struggle between the freedom and enslavement or some terrorization. So so he argued like this: is humans cannot live in the security unless they assume that the active struggle between earth and water is over, or at least contained. People like to call these two elements mother and father, assigning them gender roles according to the whim of their fancy. They must somehow persuade themselves that the struggle of this kind does not exist, or that it has somehow ended. So when you arrived at island, you would actually imagine some kind of such a fantastic image of Atlantic resort, something like that. Is today's we would very actually see this kind of tourist image, across the world, the Maldives or somewhere, and the island actually symbolize the kind of European fantasy, of the traveler, and then. But the Deleuze, partially criticized that fantasy, and then he the proof that what island is the evidence, which show that kind of forgotten struggle. And then my ideas started from here, right? Okay, just please the next slide. So okay, just in this presentation, I will discuss the ontology of archipelagic thinking. It means the ontology of archipelagic thinking. I don't reject this concept of archipelagic thinking, but what I mean is thinking is not really, the primordial condition of the new polity. That's what I'm saying. So ontology, it means the island. We must actually take on this ontology of archipelago. That is there must be a primordial condition of archipelagic thinking. So there is something else before we do this kind of archipelagic thinking. So what is this? What is this actually the primordial condition of archipelagic thinking? Of course, yes, I would say actually the ontological the existence of an island, and then by which this archipelagic subject will be produced. So all right, so the archipelagic subject, let me actually clarify. So ontological condition of archipelago, that means archipelago exists as pure difference. That is exactly what I said is the ontological state of archipelago, right? And then from this ontology, but ontology doesn't mean automatically the political. So we need actually the something else than simple ontological state of archipelago. We need archipelagic subject, but it doesn't mean that there is archipelago on the ontological sense of archipelago, and then the some another sense of the archipelagic the subject. But this ontology is actually condition of this archipelagic subject. That means the subject must be produced by this ontological state of archipelago. So in this sense, what I said, the archipelago as such will be object at the same time subject. So so right, just and then how can we actually how can we actually justify this the presupposition? In my opinion, that is technology. Concept technology in this sense very important. All right. So this purpose. Okay, just try to. That's why just I would like to I would like to put this proposition on the my own conceptualization technology. Of course, it's not my own idea. Is I already actually took this idea from many different the philosopher like Simondong, and then the Stigler and the Deleuze and then Guattari. So anyway, just so my purpose is not limited to the narrow sense of technology. Actually, if I said technology, somebody would think okay, technology might be some very the form of knowledge. But this is exactly Heideggerian understanding of technology, right? So that is, in my opinion, very narrow sense of technology. A specific form of knowledge. What does that mean? Is if you want to use some smartphone, you must learn something. That means that you must take some kind of knowledge from the manual. Something like that. That is exactly what I mean. It's a narrow sense of technology. You need some knowledge. And then today's, the chatbots or some AI, lots of, actually the scientific development, the imposed on us. And then, a lot of advertisement or some even government, drive us, to the kind of learning. You must learn, otherwise perish, something like that. So that is actually the, very narrow sense of technology. But my the concept technology is broader. So broader concept technology, all right? So I took this idea from Simondong. And then Simondong actually, argued that technology is a general mode of existence. What does this mean? Actually, quite simple. Actually, for instance, if you wanna stand on the ground properly, think about when you're a baby. You must learn how to stand against gravity, and then think about that. If you actually even the concept is not only applicable to a human being, but also to any animals or some any actually the thing on this earth. For instance, the bird, that is what actually the Deleuze and Guattari argue in the Thousand Plateau, right? The ritornelle, And then the bird, would make their own nest. They're also technology. And then also we exercise our exercise, and then we learned how to sing a song, and how to play an instrument. All this kind of way could be regarded as technology. That's what I want to say. So that's why just you would understand what I want to say, by this concept. What? Island. Why island must be regarded as pure difference? Is a geographical difference, is absolute, right? And then of course, actually today's the some technological development. I wanna define this technological development as just global cybernetic. So because of this kind of global cybernetic, right? So it seemed that this or some public development, public transportation, this geographical difference seem disappearing, But my idea is that it's actually it looked at quite this difference is disappearing, but in my opinion, this ontological state is sometimes quite arrived from the future. I will explain this one further. So actually if you wanna actually understand the meaning of the modern the world or some contemporary world without this actually dominant technological paradigm, you couldn't actually get access the what this how actually this modern world functions, works out. So Anyway, just that's why just I want to say the whole the modern world is nothing else than the some kind of certain the mode of technology. It's not the general mode of the technology as such. So do you understand what I actually try to argue here? So very interestingly, Karl Marx already actually the pointed up this one. Many the part of his works, and then in this way the Karl Marx argue in the appendix of Capital, the development of contemporary technology was inseparable from, quote, the real subsumption of labor under capital, which is a complete and constantly repeated revolution that takes place in the mode of production, in the productivity of workers, and in the relation between workers and capitalists, end quote. Sorry. So this is a very interesting analysis, right, of the analysis of the relationship between the technology and the capitalism, and then in my opinion that is exactly actually the very the fundamental concept by which we can understand the the meaning of the global capitalism. So and then how that global capitalism the influenced the or some political impact on the what I said the pure difference of archipelago. So and the constant expansion of technology and search for scientific discovery, according to Marx, applicable to the process of production cannot be separate from the birth of global workers. In Marx terms, Marx actually argue like this. This is very interesting. Marx, in Marx term, is a global worker mean, engineers, technologists, and managers. And that these professionals are key players in the global technocracy. Now, you would know that why the, Michel Foucault, to criticize, these professionals. And then you would actually see the lots of, the actual analysis of these, global workers in the French philosophy. And then Marx did not distinguish between science and technology clearly, but in my opinion, there is a fundamental gap between the two. That means the science and technology. And then this gap would, yield the technology to open use. This is actually another, theoretical foundation of my argument. So science is a theoretical principle, right? It's kind of, the formula of the natural law. But the technology, even though actually it is actually derived from scientific principle, not really actually the blocked by the kind of dogmatic principle. It must be open to use, otherwise it doesn't work. Do you know what I mean? So it based on the technology will be based on some scientific principle, but technology does not actually limit itself onto that principle. It's always open to experience. So this is what happening at the moment is a ChatGPT story, right? Is actually the Chomsky criticized ChatGPT as a toy, and then he said that is a simply just actual linguistic model. And then Ted Chang said the AI, that term is wrong. We must call this AI as collective statistics, something like that. Okay, but thing is that is a very scientific view on the ChatGPT. But in my opinion, from the perspective of this general sense of the technology, Chomsky's definition of the ChatGPT as a toy would reveal the truth of technology. What I mean actually, it is toy. That's why people was obsessed in playing with that. That is actually the power of ChatGPT, compared to other, the AI model, right? Anyway, so from this perspective, I would argue that archipelagic subject is about a minority of technical exercises in opposition to the majority of mechanical engineering, done by actually the global workers, and which can be observed in the daily utilization of any technical object. The condition of a technical object relies on social relations, then the majority of technology found its actualization in the modern state's principle. Since the early advent of political philosophy, its political goal has culminated in today's digital authoritarianism. The equal relation of technical objects are simply consumed for the algorithmic mechanism and constantly exploited to reproduce chronic perception. So could you actually change the slide and you can see the why I should argue like this? All right. So so from this one, the why the the archipelagic, the subject can challenge this kind of the global scientific if you actually accept my own argument. So this is exactly what happened. I told you that the modern technology, in particular global cybernetic, try to erase that pure difference of archipelagic ontology or some archipelagic the state what I mean geographical the state of archipelagic ontology, but this kind of thing is happening, right? So I would like to suggest like this: the islandic mode as techne. So this is actually what I wanna to show you, or some kind of taking an example to defend my own argument. In 1991, when Cyclone Var caused massive damage to Western Samoa Island, almost all urban facility and infrastructure in the village were destroyed as if modern civilization had ended. All communication with Western and American Samoa were cut. According to some reports, however, the indigenous community survived by reviving traditional technology previously estimated as a primitive skill, so-called primitive skill. The resilience of the devastated island was possible by indigenous people's minor technology when Western major technology was not functional. This instant proves that the layers of technology are multiple and cannot be reduced to a dominant technical paradigm by marginalizing the minority of technology. In this sense, the archipelagic use of technology is not a certain form of knowledge, but a mode of existence. That's actually the reason why I just insist, the archipelagic, the subject or some ontology of the archipelagic subject is concerned with this kind of the archipelagic mode of existence. All right. So this is exactly, and then could you actually change it? And then recently, actually, you would see this kind of report. All right, is another super typhoon, devastated Guam, and the Korean tourists, almost 3,000 tourists actually, the locked up in the hotel without any food, without any water, and then actually Korean government sent the emergent flight to the Guam and then rescue them. This I mean, but okay, just tourists could be rescued, or some Korean who would have some citizenship. And what about the people in Guam? Actually the all electricity cut and then something like that. Of course, actually compared to the typhoon bar and then what happened in the American Samoa, actually the impact of on the Guam because of this typhoon wasn't really actually the serious. But anyway, just what I mean, actually this kind of natural disaster always reveal the truth of archipelagic ontology. It seems that in the quite peaceful status, all right, It looked actually very beautiful, actually, the result, and then, but suddenly it turned into, the kind of the real of archipelagic ontological, the um the the real of the archipelagic, the ontological, status. This is actually very, in my opinion, very the um serious thing. We must actually regard or some to developed, this kind of thinking of the archipelagic, the subject. So, um, I just take, this concept, a weak technology from the Walter Benjamin, right? And then, Walter Benjamin's, concept of eine Schwach mechanische Kraft is in English weak messianic power, and which was actually discussed in his very famous article, the walkabout in the age of technical reproducibility. And then in the article, he argued that the weak messianic power, which has belonged to the impossibility in the present and unrealized potentiality in the past, the virtual. That means actually the virtual experience, which, are not really fully represented in, present discourse or aesthetic, the representation. So the weak messianic power does not mean messianism without the Messiah, in my interpretation, but instead many possible Messiah is a messianism without one Messiah, but many Messiah. So multiplicity without oneness. That's, in my opinion, actually what Walter Benjamin tries to say by that concept, weak Messiah. Because in German, the Schwach and implicates openness to the other, and the flexibility. So technical weakness means the flexibility of technology. So you can use, any technological object for different purposes. So this is exactly actually what what actually Heidegger already discussed. The technology has its own purpose. All right. For instance, the hammer has its own purpose. And then that is instrument. But think about that. What about what about actually the children? Children wouldn't use that hammer for actually its own purpose. Sometimes they use the hammer for their play. They're using hammer for the kind of, the what? Horse riding, something like that. Is they imitate horse riding. Or some actually what? Is a broom, broom for cleaning, okay? But the broom would have that kind of purpose, all right? The cleaning the room or something like that. But what about, children? Children would, use that one in different purpose, their own game or something like that. That's I'm saying that is exactly the openness of technology. And then also I told you that the case of the American Samoa proved the technology is nothing to do with knowledge, against the Heidegger's analysis of technology. So it's not a certain form of technology, all right? And on a certain form of actual knowledge. The technology is not certain form of knowledge, but many exercise of technical object, because objects are equal. Objects are equal. That means the object as such will be regarded as archipelagic subject, and at the same time object. So this is actually the the cornerstone of my argument, right? So so in this sense, I argue that there is a fundamental gap between technological design and its actualization. There is always a gap, the gap in which the form of the participated and individuated worldly entity encounters condition for the ontological existence of weak technologies. So technology always, contain this weak point, you know. But in the mainstream perspective, from the mainstream perspective, if actually technology has some kind of weak point, they might be regarded as some errors. So they designed, this technological frame, some sort of actually, I'm gonna tell you is might be some model of a cybernetic. Try to remove, that error, or some, the fix that kind of error. So, when I take another example, so for instance, refrigerator, okay, refrigerator. Actually, we wouldn't say when the refrigerator out of order, the refrigerator turn into melancholy. We wouldn't say like that. There might be the Heideggerian solution, but my idea is that, and then just from the mainstream, the perspective, the actually dominant, the framework of a technology today. If the refrigerator out of order, we must fix it or throw it away. That is actually the main the stream framework of technology, or dominant, the framework of technology today. But from the weak technology, from the perspective of weak technology, we can use that the refrigerator for different purposes. You can use the broken refrigerator as some storage or some table, whatever. You can use it. And then the people already actually use that kind of some broken technology for their own purposes. In particular, some island. You can find a lot of actually similar cases or examples. Some the tribes in the Papua New Guinea and the tribes in the Polynesia, they actually imitated some airplane shape, and then they worshipped airplane as a kind of god, something like that. It doesn't mean that they are primitive. They are actually some the ignorant. They would have their own the exercise of that kind of technology. All right. So this is actually what I want to argue. So the Western concept of technology has been rooted in science since the Enlightenment. However, technology cannot be identified with science as such, because technical dimensions are always open to any possibility of planetary differences. And yoga might be technology to maintain human body and mind relation functionally, yoga, but not regarded as technology in Western science-based terms. If you insist that yoga is technological, it might be possible, you are, new age, person or something like that. Yoga is technology. Whereas in Korea, we argue that, some kind of fortune telling is a science, something like that. So, and then statistics, something like that. But you must put it in the Indian category of technology. Do you know what I mean? Yoga, you would insist, okay, yoga is technology, but you must put it in the Indian category of technology. So this is Indian technology, okay? Which relies on religion, classifying it into geographical differences. This one-dimensional understanding of technology has given rise to the hierarchical regime of knowledge about technical objects and imposed a unified manual on their technical reproduction. The mainstream understanding of technology is based on the land-centric perspective. So we must liberate, or some we must, let this kind of land-centric perspective go. Liberate this actually the technology from this land-centric perspective. We must liberate technology, use of technology from landscape. So this is actually I already explained that. So, and what is actually the hierarchy, hierarchy of technology shaped today? So I think actually cybernetic is actually the very I think the how can I say, just cybernetic is actually the main framework of today's the technology is a governance, governance. So I think the theory of cybernetic is the origin of today's technopolitics, the digital production frameworks. I already mentioned Marx, as a technology is associated with the production, technopolitics is centered within the modern machine of governance, the nation states. Marx already recognized this in his study of capitalism and questioned why technological advancement could not liberate workers from labor, but rather enslave them more and more. Technopolitics serve as a mechanization of labor to sustain the link between capitalism and the modern state. The combination of capitalism and the state was not accidental from the outset. So Marx actually, in my opinion, clarified this link between the state and the technology. And because of this nation state, the worker cannot use this technological advancement for their emancipation, but rather they actually turn into enslaved by nation state, and then actually they use this technology more and more to be enslaved by nation state. So nation states are modern invention and technological means of a political philosophy. This political economy was about totalization of a globe itself from land-centric territorialization. So now actually we have, this world. For instance, Taiwan, Taiwan is an island, independent, archipelagic subject. But mainland, so-called mainland, China insist this island belong to us. Why? Why? China would belong to Taiwan. Why actually people do not have actually reversed the idea? China would belong to island, but not many people think, the island could embrace land. Why? This is very strange. So that's what I'm saying. That is an ideology. It's nothing to do with any, reality. So Thomas Hobbes was one of the earliest philosophers who theorized the relationship between technical rationality. In today's term might be, and we call that this kind of rationality, algorithmic intelligence, and the state governance. So he actually he was the first theorist who tried to bring together, the artificial intelligence and then, the state governance. He called the state, the Commonwealth, an artificial man. If you read, his book Leviathan, you can see that, So for him, the state is the artificial mechanization of greatest human powers, and the unlimited power of a state is absolute representation of representative of subject, the absolute sovereignty. So actually that Thomas Sepp said. So the nation state as technical means. So the individual cannot experience state, but only imagine its presence through technological representation. This might be a media, And the printing technology was the first media to have allowed the individual to picture the state in their mind, and the mass media would follow the early technological affordance. The imperative of a social contract is a covenant based on the imagined community. Social contract is based on this imagined community. So in this vein, political philosophy came along with the technological totalization. The primary consideration of Hobbes' political theory was how to mechanize human motivation. So this is actually, the early scene of the birth of a modern state. So the social contract theory was the rational conclusion from his adaptation of a scientific revolution to justify his hypothesis of the state. So this is what Hobbes did. Hobbes tried to put, the logic of the state on the scientific foundation. That is actually his theory. That's why he was regarded as first political philosopher who actually theorized governance or some governmentality, as Michel Foucault, clarified. So he reasoned that in this way, mathematical computation may stand in for the workings of a human desire. So he was the first, the theorist who can, propose the, algorithmic representation of what? Human desire. He's a precursor of today's algorithm, or some, artificial intelligence, and then today's lots of, scientists argue we can represent human desire with that kind of mathematical model, all right? And the chatbots as well. We can the represent what you actually wanna say, and then that 2020, that actually the artificial model to scan our blood flow, and then actually the anticipate what we really want. This is so funny. This actually the machine can read our dream, and then it actually analyze our blood the in our brain, the blood flow in our brain, and they anticipate what we gonna do, or what the kind of what we actually want. That is a very interesting one. So that is exactly actually what the Hobbes the imagined when he wrote this book. So after Hobbes founded the scientific proposition of the state, the modern theory of a state has always imagined the ideal function of a state as automaton, an automatic machine. This early proposition of a technology combined with body politics could be called Enlightenment cybernetics, and still haunts the contemporary political theory of the state. Actually, you could actually see this similar argument, through piles of the research or some the articles. Today, you can find a lot of actually similar logic, and then but and then the preliminary investigation has arrived at its pinnacle with the completion of digital automation of the entire world, which can be called global cybernetics. This is actually my argument. So I hope the idea is developed. And now that we are living in this actually global cybernetic, the world of global cybernetic, and then this is what exactly actually, what I want to argue, and there were some developed, the idea of the archipelagic subject. See that, this is what I see that actually what the made, in my PowerPoint. So Jean Baudrillard already analyzed this one. His famous book about concept simulation, and he actually said like this: in satellitization, that means if when we shoot satellites on the outside of the Earth, he actually announced that that is endometaphysic, and then he actually argued like this: he who is satellite is not who one might think. Through the orbital inscription of a special object, it is the planet Earth that becomes a satellite. It is the terrestrial principle of reality that becomes eccentric, hyperreal, and insignificant. This is actually the reality of what? The planetary, the scope. The landscape no longer possible, all right? And the landscape as such turn into the certain form of the perspective because of this, satellitization. So I think that's why we need to reread, we need to reread Jean Baudrillard, today. And then actually right side, this image show that the what is the Elon Musk, satellite, Skynet, Skylink, okay? Right side. And then this actually the bright spot indicate how many satellites on our in the sky. Of course, it's not really sky; it's outside of the this planet. But this is actually the reality in which we live, right? So, sorry. So these are the hopes, utopia. The utilitarian utopia is a function, following that efficiency. And then the utilitarian utopia was complacent with capitalism is completed by establishment of the global cybernetics. This global system instigates the dominant algorithm and excludes other technical possibilities. The archipelagic use of technology, on the other hand, suggests rebuilding its multiple exercises by retaining geographical or geological experience toward invention of weak technologies. This is actually the main point I try to make. So what I want to actually call this kind of exercise, based on geographical differences, as radical empiricism of technology, because technology always open to experiences. This radical empiricism of technology elucidates how it is conceivable for there to be weak technologies. This accessibility of technology is a condition of a planetary technical exercise, as Zhang Baudelaire already described here, which would result in a variety of political subjectivities. The ontological exercise of weak technology produces the politics of dismantling technological control as the minor use of technology, in other words, archipelagic use of technology. The concept of weak technologies aims at bringing forth alternative political philosophy to produce people to come against the mechanical body politics of the modern state system. So, all right. So I think the time is running out. So, all right. Just since the 1940s, this global cybernetic theory emerged. And then this is global cybernetics, and the Starlink operates in low orbit. This is Elon Musk. You can see that how actually this kind of the global cybernetic function in Ukraine war. Okay, war in Ukraine. You can see that this kind of the Starlink. Even that they changed that the war paradigm. A lot of people believe that Russia would take over the Ukraine immediately, but it didn't happen because of this actually new technological environment. So in control theory, cybernetic is associated with the model that combines monitoring and controlling according to the feedback between what is happening on the monitor and what should be happening on the controller. A monitor indicates the eyes, while a controller denotes the brain. When Robert Wiener, he's actually the founder of this, the modern formula of the cybernetics. Of course, this term as such is not actually created by Wiener. It was used by many the writer, before the Wiener. For instance, Stanislaw Lem, the Polish writer, he used actually this term, and then he actually defined that the cybernetic as a black box, and then Bruno Latour, took this term, and then he developed his own theory of a cybernetic. So, but I don't think actually the cybernetic is a black box. I don't really, to go to that direction. So, Wiener's theory of control was founded on the investigation of psychopathology, which discovered the parallel between functioning of a human brain and that of a mechanical system. This idea is of course, a founding, this idea actually is, the founding theory of today's brain science. And then general intelligence, concept of general intelligence, rely on this Wiener's, the mathematical proof, all right? So intelligence is not really actually unique one. It's actually rely on the quantitative accumulation. Okay, that means actually the the difference between the octopus intelligence and human intelligence really simply depends on the quantity, of the data. The human brain would contain the more data than the octopus. That's why actually human being would have a more intelligence than the octopus. But it doesn't mean an octopus has no intelligence. This is actually the theory of general intelligence. And then a lot of neuroscience, the different from this LLM model is a chatbot model. They develop their own different the model is more like actually the derived from Angelo Mosso's model is the scanning the brain, the mechanism, and then they actually imitate that one and then transform that the kind of brain mechanism into the form of the summer machine. So anyway, but anyway, this is also the developed by the Wiener and then discovered by Wiener. And so in the Wiener theory, cybernetic to some point, already anticipate actually, the advent of this post-humanism, something like that. So the numerical machine, a digital device preferable for higher accuracy, is constructed on binary scale in which the number of alternatives presented at each choice is 2. The computing machine, a logical machine as well as an arithmetic machine, attains self-fulfilling automatism. The machine must integrate contingency in accordance with the systemic algorithm. I believe this algorithmic accomplishment of the automatic system has been a central idea in constructing digital technology since then, 1940s. And then cybernetic function as a form of automatization by the total computation of data and excludes human interference at the end. So this perfect establishment of automatic mechanism means that numerical data must be inserted at the beginning and all the rules for combining them during the computation. This self-fulfilled circuit shapes mechanism without telos in Hegel's sense. In short, cybernetic automatization cybernetic automatization purpose is controlling contingency by setting up systemic algorithm. This is what I mean. Actually, this cybernetic designed to prevent us from that different use of technology. So this is actually, in my opinion, the cybernetic is a kind of dominant framework of today's technology. So from this perspective, the different use of technology would be or must be regarded as kind of error. That means the wrong use of the technology. You must stick to the manual, and that is what I mean. We are now actually facing up at the moment. So the theory of cybernetic presupposes the technological modification of human behaviors and the post-human approach to human beings. So according to this paradigm, there is no fundamental difference between humans and other animals. The definition of the mortal as an animal with a soul cannot scientifically distinguish human beings from other species. So, already actually post-human arrived by this kind of cybernetic. Therefore, the concept of cybernetic is precisely the post-human arrangement of relationship between humans and machines, and further between devices and machine. From this perspective, messages and communication facility, media turn into the subject matter of a scientific inquiry to understand society. That means actually that there is some kind of paradigm shift, by the advent of cybernetic. Actually when Hobbes, founded that, scientific theory of a state, he believed that the moral philosophy, that means actually the human being, would follow that the benefit of utility. There's a utilitarianism. But this actually the liberalism, according to Foucault, fallen into some crisis in the 18th century. And then you would know that is another theory which actually tried to rescue, this liberalism from that kind of crisis was, Malthusian, theory of population. That is biology. Okay. So, and then actually until the 20th century, you could see a lot of such, the imperialist maneuver based on this biological paradigm. That is racism, and then some kind of, misogynic, some lot of actually, that biological biopolitic, right? The biological theory of biopolitic dominated. But when, this cybernetic emerged, actually this paradigm is shifted to what? The information theory. Yes, so now that we live in the information theory, and of course, as we have the kind of ideological conflict, between the remnant of the 20th century, and then this is actually the new technology of the 21st century, new actual paradigm of 21st century, based on the information theory. So anyway, so I try to actually, describe the what kind of actually conflict we have at the moment. But anyway, just this the cybernetic, the paradigm is turning to the dominant, actually the framework by which we understand, or some organized our daily life. All right. So from this perspective, message and communication facility, that means the media, turn into the subject matter of the scientific inquiry to understand society, right? Because it is regarded as kind of the information. So the all right. So I'm gonna actually go to my conclusion. Okay, just in this way, the operation of individual humans can be identified with the process of communication machines, in that both take sensory receptors as an early stage of their operations. This parallelism between humans and machine gives rise to the tragic consequence of cybernetics. The first sensory impression is not instantly transmitted into the information, but transformed into new form usable for the next stage of performance through fundamental modulation. This is a digital paradigm. It's a 1 and 0. They actually, the reduced, all information into this actual short circuit is a 1 and 0 digital paradigm. And this actually became a dominant. So, all right. Against this kind of a dominant digital paradigm, whatever called in, I would call this kind of new paradigm as a digital authoritarianism, all right? And then against this new authoritarianism, I would like to insist some kind of some shelter of the political subject, and there must be called some, the archipelagic, subject, based on that archipelagic ontology. So how can we actually explain this one? So I just put the 4 here, the radical empiricism technology, okay? And then this is actually very important. And then this radical empiricism technology might be the justification of the minor use of technology. So so this accessibility of technology is the condition of planetary technical exercises, which should result in a variety of political subjectivity. And then the ontological exercise of weak technology produces the politics of dismantling technological control. And then as the minor use of technology, the concept of weak technologies aims at bring forth alternative political philosophy to produce people to come against mechanical border politics, a modern state system. So this is what actually conclude, through actually my talk. So, the people to come, is in the Luzicatory sense, the actually, the ontology of archipelagic subject is in this sense about conception to substitute new political philosophy for political economy. So now that we live in the the world of political economy, but we need to actually construct or rearrange our desire or some our sense, if you like, the Rangse. And then actually we need actually to reuse this kind of technological and the combinator, so or some biopolitics. So actually my concern is how to to intervene this dominant framework of global cybernetic, and it doesn't mean we can reject this global cybernetic, but rather we must intervene the use of this cybernetic. So actually it doesn't mean actually we simply follow this kind of manual, but we recreate that manual for a different purpose. That is actually definitely archipelagic subject. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Alex. Wow, that's
It's a
a whole
big
lot to
story.
masticate on. Truly wide-ranging. For the sake of our audience and to give them a bit of time to formulate their own questions or comments, permit me, and I will try to be very quick about this, to try to focalize the discussion a little bit. And I will do that from my own notes and my own obsessions. Right?
It's not so much.
Okay. Sorry, Lulu.
Lulu, you have a question?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway, later for the discussion, if you have questions or comments, kindly type them in chat or raise your hand, and we'll.
Wait. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So,
Okay.
Alex, the archipelagic for you, and I'm quoting your own words, is quote not just political, but needs interpolation into subjectivity, right? For it to stand out, as you say, as quote, pure difference, which I understood later to mean something very specific, which is difference from or otherness than the ideal bourgeois subject, the self-possessed individual of global capitalism, right? So the archipelagic subject for you is, quote, a production, not a matter of thinking or knowing. And I really appreciated your critique of the work of the Caribbean writers, Edouard Sant and Derek Walcott at the beginning, and their notion of archipelagic thinking, in which you found problematic, at least in terms of the agenda you're pushing for today. To get to this argument, your medial or middle term is technology, no? Which you expound on in relation to the nation state in particular and governmentality in general, right? And capitalist instrumentalism. That is in terms, therefore, of political economy and political philosophy. No, but technology for you should be understood, again, like the archipelagic subject, that you're seeking to make emerge, not as a form of knowing, therefore it is not epistemology that we're concerned with here, but what you call a mode of existence, hence ontological, right? Now I want to like take everybody else and you, Alex, to a very important part of your presentation, which was when you well, this was the closest to an empirical case, for lack of a better word, right? That you looked at. When you looked at what happened to the archipelago of Western American Samoa, right, in 1991, when they were the archipelago was devastated by the cyclone Val, and the media and communications technology in the archipelago, the apparatus, just completely got wiped out. But the islanders survived, according to your quick account, by reviving traditional technology, right? Which, by the terms of your later discussion, of technology, or like the kind of privilege you are giving to what you call weak technologies. And I presume traditional technology here would be weak technology, right? Okay. In relation to which, you say, and I quote, the archipelagic use of technology right? So therefore, right, like you are
Use
being
or exercise.
technological about it, right? The archipelagic use of technology suggests rebuilding its multiple exercises by retaining geographical or geological experiences toward the invention of such weaker technologies. I'm just quite intrigued by the notion here of geographical or geological experiences and how they matter in terms of, right, like this theory of archipelagic subjectivity that you are putting
Yeah,
forth.
good question.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that idea is related to what Walter Benjamin argued, jet is all experience is takes place in certain space and time,
Okay.
but it doesn't actually, the retained, when you actually, move to another place. That means quite momental or some term evanescent. That's why actually, according to Stigler, the Western civilization, in particular European civilization, or some Egyptian civilization, or some Greek civilization invented, the letters, or some kind of recording machine. There might be a so-called, third memory, something like that. Actually, people draw some painting on the stone wall, or some inscribe something on stone, or some the making some book, something like that. That is exactly actually what representation of that experience. But according to Walter Benjamin, it doesn't actually what it doesn't bring that experience as such back to the present. So the present is not really actually the present one, according to Walter Benjamin. And also the Deleuze also pointed out that the present, what we have in terms of present is the continuation of the past, but it's not the perfect past, but actually ruin of the past. That's why actually we need the reinterpret that ruin, or some the approach that ruin from the the experience, perspective experience. That is actually what the Benjamin said, as far as I understand. So what I mean actually, this exactly the geographical or geological exercise could be identical with experience. So, or some, in other words, experience in Latin, as has same meaning as the experimental.
Yeah.
Experiment. All right. The experience means experiment. So experiment is momental. Is a simply actually happening moment, and then only what we have is a memory. So actually what we have is the in terms of past is just a memory. That's why we can reconstruct this memory, or some in other sense. Actually there might be some quoting Hegel. Hegel said actually the origin will be reinvented from the experience. Experience does not have any origin. When you experience something, that origin of that experience invented. That's what Hegel actually argued in the logical sense. I think this and the idea is very intriguing in my opinion. So the idea is the rely on this theoretical, the argument. So archipelagic subject means some kind of very creative subjectivity, which does not use that the dominant frame of the technology. There might be very creative use of chatbots, something like that. That's what I'm saying. Is the Noam Chomsky criticized the ChatGPT as a toy, but in my opinion, that is a toy. That's why people was very happy to use that one. That's actually I wanna say. So that exactly is, of course, that is not a toy. When the big tech company made that one, they wanna sell it, but people play with that ChatGPT, asking a stupid question, and then and they try to prove how that chatbot is stupid, how much stupid, blah blah. That is actually that relation that the gameplay, something like that. That is very important, and then that is actually the archipelagic, the moment. And then of course, as I told you, that this kind of playfulness firmly rely on geographical differences.
Thank you. That's very good. Thank you. So we now welcome comments as well as questions from everyone in the gallery. Please raise your hand or type in chat.
Corey, yeah.
Hello, Corey.
Hi, Alex. Hi, Oka. Uh, uh, this is just a take from what I mean, a lot of what you said, but I'm just reminded. I'm just reminded of what the U.S. the Americans did when they were trying to start with the regime, the U.S. regime, right, in the Philippines in the late 19th century, right, Oka, right? So they made use of census, the technology of census, right, in gathering data and gathering demographics, right? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
The use of the census as a technology in gathering demographics about the Indios, about the Philippine Islands, so they can analyze. They can actually make use the demographics, the census, in so many ways in order to control and consolidate the people. So that's one. Also, they made use of the camera. They took a lot of pictures of the Indios, okay, to analyze how we are and how they can consolidate and control the Indios, okay. But the people in Mindanao actually, but they couldn't reach. They couldn't reach and control the people of Mindanao, and they had to use superior arms, okay, the technology of the arms in order to control, in order to bring to integration the people of Mindanao. But it's so hard still. But I'm just reminded of what you said about the use of technology actually in controlling the subject, this human subject, and that's exactly what the Americans did in their crude form of technology. But that was still very powerful then during that time, because they did succeed in putting, they did succeed in consolidating the Filipinos with the help of the elite, okay, the intellectuals. Yeah, that's it.
Do you really believe it succeeded?
I don't think
Somehow
quite succeeded.
the Insulares and the Peninsulares did
when you say
actually.
it, quite familiar with me, because I also grown up the kind of village, lots of Philippine immigrants in my village, and then we have a U.S. military camp. But they made me person like me.
Really?
It does seem quite successful because I came up here and then realize what kind of thing is problem. So anyway, a good question. So actually that is, in my opinion, the sort of primitive accumulation of global cybernetic. They gathering many data based on that anthropological research, and you should know that actually the very first the conference about this cybernetic theory, I think in 1950 something like that, funded by actually the one famous and rich the American, and launched, and then if you see that the proceeding and the meat, you know, that the anthropologists in the Gregory Bateson and the anthropologists participate in the, you know, building up this early stage of cybernetics. What does that?
Yeah.
Exactly. Actually, this actually, you know, that the information theory paradigm is actually the originated from that the you know the biological paradigm, you know, which
Yeah.
still dominated in the 20th century.
True,
The,
true.
the
Yeah.
19th and 20th century. That is, in my opinion, remnant of racism, you know. And imperialism is, you know, collaborated with this kind of racism. Without racism, they cannot come to occupy here. They couldn't actually gain the, you know, their own, you know, privilege, you know, is ideological privilege needed, you know, through this biological theory. In the Austrian, you know, biologists and Austrian economists, you know, founded this actually biological, the biopolitics, you know, and then, but now the actually after the 1990, you know, according to the many research, you know, you can find out the, you know, recent research, and who discussed this one is the new research on the development of cybernetic. Many actually the historian, you know, already, you know, put forward many actually the interesting the you know the research, the paper and something like that. So, and then according to them, you know, this 1990 this paradigm shift you know took place, and then the information theory became a dominant. That means actually they criticize racism, even, you know, the capitalism, you know, the big, you know, tech company in the Silicon Valley, for instance, Elon Musk, and then, you know, the Steve Jobs, and you know, the Pixar company and the Amazon and all these American big tech company criticize, Google in particular, criticize what? The racism. And then, you know, misogyny, you know, the tendency, and then they actually defend you know, started to defend the feminism. It doesn't mean, you know, the actually the feminism is you know, complacent with this kind of capitalism. It doesn't mean that. They use this kind of, you know, the ideological the rhetoric to actually protect or some to push their own, you know, the cybernetic paradigm toward that kind of a more actually different, you know, the capitalist accumulation, information based on information. That is what is the law to protect rights of the intellectual property. 1990, you know that. That is Amazon, and then Google, and a lot of actually this big data company come up based on this law. And then what at the moment is faced up, you know, is, in my opinion, the crisis of this actually so-called cognitive capitalism. Right? Some French, you know, economists and some leftist, you know, economists that define this kind of new paradigm of capitalism as the cognitive capitalism. But actually, in my opinion, one we actually you know the have at the moment is crisis of this new spirit of capitalism, the end of neoliberalism, and then also you can see that this new chatbot, you know, new technology, what threatening the copyright. Now it's a serious thing. Yeah, actually in the you know designers, and then you know some you know copy, you know the you know the copy makers, whatever, advertiser is threatened by this new technology, you know. And then also would, you know, in my opinion, destroy the, you know, the material foundation of this cognitive capitalism. That's why actually the American government, you know, now you know, discuss that the regulation is problem of this copyright is because they infringe in copyright, you know, because without any quotation, you know, they took even they hacked, you know, some kind of a server, and then they took that kind of data, you know. So a lot of actually the discussion over this, you know, the emergence of new technology. So I think we are now in the transitory moment. I think it's true, but you know that actually the Marx already this one, you know, in 19th century, as a technological development would, you know, would cause some kind of conflict between actually, you know, the pulse of production and then relation of the production. Now that actually we can witness that thing, actually that kind of symptomatic conflict, you know, came back. So I think that's why I'm quite interestingly watching, you know, what kind of regulation they could do in the, you know, America. I'm just watching I'm checking the, you know, actually, you know,
Yeah.
the American newspaper and then journalism almost
Yeah.
every day. What kind of thing happening? A lot of actual discussion, but there might be some sort of a regulation will come up soon, you know, and then it will
That's another
change.
talk. That's another talk from you again, right?
Yeah. But
Thank you,
archipelagic
Alex.
use is a different thing, you know. Archipelagic use will be intervened this conflict, and we must extend this freedom of technology, all right? And then you know, it's some sort of you know, different actually the practice of that technology, and then would bring in more, you know, some space in using actually that technology.
Right. Yeah, something like what Stigler was saying about a republic of the digital as opposed to a republic of letters, right?
Yeah, exactly.
A very important essay.
Yeah.
Alex, there's a
True.
comment slash question from Lulu here. I'll read it for her.
Mhm.
Quote, the urgency of intervention in cybernetics seems paramount to your lecture as developed on the philosophical level. The ordinary audience might want to know the practical implications of your argument. Would
Mm.
you like to explain what forms or shape such interventions, speaking of interventions, right, might take in everyday struggles of ordinary people?
I think the people already use that technology in different way. I already actually introduced you that, you know, the American Samoa case, you know.
Mhm.
You know, actually from that dominant framework of technology, I actually put that the term primitive skill that is actually reported to some American government. You know, they actually made some kind of report the how the indigenous community can, you know, the help the resilience of that, you know, the community from the disastrous, you know, the destruction, something like that. So but anyway, just they put that term primitive skill, but that actually the, you know, idea is in my opinion problematic. It doesn't mean that that is a primitive one. It's another technology. You must learn it if you live in the island, you know, because cyclone is what is actually the, you know, how can I say this?
Regular
Homeostasis,
experience.
homeostasis, you know, just like that. It's always that thing happening. You can expect this your typhoon, you know, cyclone would come. You must prepare. And that is actually, in my opinion, another technology. It's not, you know, the primitive technology. And then how can the BBC, you know, the made a documentary about this thing. I think that is very fantastic. I couldn't find that clip because I watched that one when I was in England, you know, very long time ago. So, but um, one actually, you know, the professor in the university, you know, the Samoa University, something, and she actually had, you know, some interview about that, and she said, actually, you know, we can survive because older generation still has the memory of that, you know, what they did when they were kids. That's why actually this older generation, that means the senior, you know, people brought, you know, their people, tribe to the jungle. And then they actually use that sort of actually, you know, plants, and then, you know, there's even, you know, they hunt, you know, some kind of some crop, you know, on the palm tree crop, something like that. And then they prepare the food and then they survive. And how can make, you know, that clothes and with that, you know, the palm tree, something like that. And then that is exactly actually what I mean. It's a necessary skill to survive in island. That is, I mean, the archipelagic ontology. You know, we live in the very efficient, you know, the urban and network and then facility. But if electronic, you know, blackout, what happened? Is the air conditioner didn't work, and then what that happened? That thing happened in, you know, Guam, you know, 2 weeks ago. It would happen always, but you must actually think about that. But you know, the government simply said this is emergency, you know, the alarming, and then we actually prepare that one. You know, the government prepare that, you know, tax is used for the, you know, this preparing this emergency, you know, condition, blah blah. but it's not really actually works, once actually that kind of disaster, the happen. That's what I'm saying. So people already use this kind of practical sense of technology. And then because like this, all right. So I didn't actually mention it this case, but think about how to ride a bicycle. Okay, you would know that the what bicycle means. You would have lots of knowledge about bicycle, but it doesn't mean automatically you can ride a bicycle with that knowledge. Technology is always open to this one. So knowledge about technology and knowledge about the bicycle would be the science of bicycle, okay, physics or whatever. But it doesn't actually give you the chance to ride in a bicycle. You must practice riding bicycle. Get the technology, meaning of technology. So at the moment we are a little bit hallucinated, or some haunted by that kind of a dominant framework of technology. You must learn the ChatGPT, you must learn chatbot, you must learn artificial intelligence, and then you could use this technology perfectly. No, I don't think so. It's already actually the people use this ChatGPT chatbot in different way. Somebody used that one is a kind of the virtual friend. Somebody actually use it. They actually almost every day they developed a new the way of using that ChatGPT or chatbot, and then they keep posting on the Twitter and the Facebook,
Right.
asking crazy, and then that is what I mean. That is already people already practice it. That is the meaning of technology. You cannot stop it. You cannot stop it. When the engineer makes that kind of a new technology, but people use it in different way already. And then, but of course, yes, and then this actually the dominant framework try to define this different use of technology, wrong use of technology. You shouldn't use this one, blah blah. But why not? That's, in my opinion, creative moment.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You were raising your
I just
hand.
want to show my three answers.
We already use Zoom like this. This is also in the guerrilla warfare. Guerrilla warfare. Think about that. Is Marcos in the Mexico.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, where is
Use the poem like that. That's what I'm saying.
it disappeared again?
Iping, were you raising your hand a while back? You have a question.
No, I can just simply say, yeah, just some reflections. So, Alex, thank you so much for this wonderful, wonderful talk that really bringing everything. My initial understanding is, purely geographical, but then your talk, put it in relation to the formation of nation state, and also to the mode of production, global capitalism. And what I appreciate the most is toward the latter part of your talk, how this idea of archipelagic thinking could also be related to our conception, our philosophy, and our invention of technology. Technology like ChatGPT, but also in the form of this, cybernetics, how the digitalization of a globe, so that I think this is wonderful, and also giving this idea of the archipelagic thinking truly a philosophical backup. So that with everything that you have mentioned, Alex, so that now that we have been engaged in this enterprise of critical island study, so then how do you come to a sort of description or definition of we've been doing, so given your talk today, so what is the implication in our practice and understanding of critical island studies? So what is the significance? Can you say something about that?
So I wanna actually develop this critical island study. Okay, just we have island study, as like a part of or sub, the science of that international relations study, something like that. More like a political science, But I don't want to actually, go to that direction. And then also, though, we have, many, the previous works in relation to this island, for instance, the Caribbean, I just already quoted, some Glisson and the Walcott and many actually anthropologists in Latin America, they developed this new paradigm of a theoretical investigation of the epistemological meaning of island, something like that. So or indigenous study, and many actually, the study we already have. There are many study we already have, but my actual interest is really the focused on the theoretical foundation of these critical studies. We can do lots of the empirical approach to island or some geographical differences, but we need actually that theoretical foundation, some sort of the milestone, and then by which we can bring together in different study on the platform of critical island study. That's what I want to say. So it's kind of islandic belt, islandic belt. And then I don't want to actually, the regard, island as a part of this kind of some continent. What I want is island is more like, some the independent. It's not really, sorry, it's not really actually something belong to continent, but some sort of parallel to the continent, or some. And that is true actually. That is true. Actually, before this modern world, actually Indonesia, Philippines, and then the Taiwan and the Japan already connected together. Already these the different island was in the trans individual relations. But once the actually that's why I said that the Asia, this term is such a quite tragic term in my opinion. And then Asia, this actually some kind of umbrella category try to bring together in different the geographical difference into that one single dimension of space, so-called Asia, as sort of a reason. Actually, I already complained whenever actually being in the such a conference. Asia is not the one, That's a crazy word, We don't call ourselves Asian, We call themselves in the Filipino different way. We have a lots of actually local name. Why do you actually call us, some Asian? We are so different people, and that's what I'm saying. So that's why actually we need our own science, our own, the category to discuss the problem issue in this, the mode of life. That's what I'm saying. So in my opinion, that's why technology will be the kind of, the mediated, some concept to actually develop, the theoretical foundation, because technology is a little bit universal term, but at the same time containing, embracing differences. Because I told you that it's an empirical dimension. It must be open to the empirical dimension. So technology should be some kind of, mediated term by which that we can, develop some theoretical foundation of, our own discipline. That's why that is actually I'm thinking. When I just came across this term, when Oscar Lulu, suggests this, I just thought, oh, this is what I actually think about, And then I'm really actually, haunted by, this term, critical island study. Yeah.
Thank you, Alex. Yeah, it's 5 p.m. Actually no. Yes, it's 5 p.m. Manila time, 6 in Seoul.
Yeah.
I think we have time for another question or two before we call it a day. Any late breaking question or comment from anybody else? So Iping, will you formally? Looks like we're not gonna get any more.
Right, yeah, but I
Will you
think this
formally
is
close?
yes, thank you, Olga, yeah, and thank you, Alex. So you probably know, or maybe you don't, but then Alex talk today is actually the last in the series, well, I think spring is over. We're now into summer, right? We finished last week, so this is our summer vacation. So Corey, it's nice to see you, and Luisa and Lulu is always here, and Olga, wonderful. Thank you so much for your moderation. So this is wonderful. We met last year in October in Uki. And this year, very soon in October, we'll be going back to Indonesia and to be, surrounded by all these islands. And we will meet there and to continue our intervention in critical island studies. So I guess I think that my assistant is trying to get the slide, the poster for the conference, for the October conference. Is that right, Frank? Yeah. But anyway, so I guess, thank you, Alex. This is such a wonderful, here we go. Yeah. Thinking Island. Exactly. Wonderful. Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Frank. So with that, okay, I think we have come to the conclusion of this series of Zoom talks. Thank you so much for your participation and also for your support. With this poster and also with the conference in mind, we look forward to seeing you in Indonesia, and let's continue our enterprise for Thinking Island. Okay, folks. So thank you. We're done.
Bye.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Alex.
Sure. Yeah. 谢谢. Thank
Okla,
you
thank
so
you.
much, Oka.
Lulu, safe
Right,
journey
thank you.
back to home.
Oh yeah.
You're gonna take a
Alex,
month.
thank you so
She
much.
wants to linger and malinger in South Korea.
Thank you.
We're envious.
Yeah.
Bye for
So
now.
Alex, is this
Hey, are we not going to have a group picture?
Oh
Yeah.
yes,
Yes,
this
we
is a good
should.
idea.
Yeah.
So
There's still some remaining, yeah.
thank you, Frank.
Wait, I have to.
Yeah, we'll take
Can we both turn on
picture
the
taking. Oh my God.
video?
Ready?
Just a memento.
Let's
Just
turn on our
Here we
cameras
go.
and I will take
turn
screenshots.
on your
Hi, Alex. How are you doing, Alex?
good.
say what? Oh my God. Camera, please.
Yep.
Okay.
Hi.
Okay.
Exhibing. Congrats, Alex.
Thank you.
All right,
Sure.
so we're done.
Stay safe.
Okay.
Pictures taken.
Bye-bye.
Bye. 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 Okay.
Bye.